Cashflow Diary Podcast, Episode 8.
Congratulations, you showed up. Give yourself a high five in celebration of your success. Welcome to the Cashflow Diary, where new and experienced investors come to take confident action towards their goals. Your host is a family man, a real estate entrepreneur, investor, coach, and instructor. As a master facilitator of Robert Kiyosaki's Cashflow 101 game, he's inspired many to begin their journey into creating cash flow for themselves and their family. And now, here he is to offer you the tools required to earn the income desired. Your cash flow coach, Jay Massey.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back. I wanted to make sure that everyone knows, if you haven't already, make sure you download the first episode to understand how this particular podcast is run in the background format of the show. And to take advantage of your complimentary gift, just go over to CashFlowDiary.com, sign up on the list, and you get the ebook. It's investing made easier. It's made for wholesaling. Hopefully, if you are the one that wants to know how to be the deal maker, i.e. create a deal literally using none of your own money or credit, that's kind of what that ebook is for. It's beginning to encroach upon the pieces of our cash flow creation system, which literally teaches you how to build your own personal cash flow pipeline. Place your email in the box. You go ahead and get started immediately and now. Well, today we're going to talk about the top 3 questions your prospect needs answered. Top 3 questions your prospect needs answered. You must answer these questions or you will fail. How about that for a guarantee? I guarantee you failure if you do not answer these questions. However, I cannot guarantee you success even if you do. But that's just the way of business. Anyway, here we go. Before we get started, one of the things that I wanted to share with you is a quote. This quote is as follows. It says, "Your ability to communicate is an important tool in your pursuit of your goals, whether it is with your family, your coworkers, or your clients and customers." The gentleman who said that is popularly known as Les Brown. He happened to write the foreword on a book that I was a part of called Initiative with Mr. Greg Reed. Probably a year and a half ago, I wrote chapter 7. So I'm chapter 7 in that particular book. You can still get that book on Amazon. And it's definitely something to always remember, is that your ability to communicate is an important tool. It's an important tool. With it being a tool, I'm going to take the word tool and make it a skill set and say that it's probably something that you should be sharpening, something you should be working on, is your ability to communicate. The business that you and I are in, or that we're in, is the business of communication to a large part. And being ineffective at communication will hamper or hinder or make it challenging for you to be able to communicate. Now, here's the good news, is that you don't always have to be the one to physically do the communication. Like some of us, we know that we're not the best writers. We might not even be the best speakers. We might even hate talking in public. That doesn't mean there aren't other forms of communication. That's the good news. The bad news is that you must become proficient at whichever type of communication your customer, coworker, family, or client wants to receive. It's not mad. You don't get the privilege. We don't get the privilege of only learning to communicate in the way that we like. We must learn to communicate in the way that it can be received. Because a message sent, but a message sent that is not received is still a message that is not communicated. And we must learn to be able to communicate to all different types and all different types of people. So learning and developing that ability to communicate is a very, very important tool. With that being said, I want to take a break for a second before we get into our main topic and take a dip in the news. That's right, a dip, DIIP, in the news. This is an article that I saw, and if you're anything like me, I'm sure you've heard about or saw it or read it. Anyway, something, you heard of this thing called a Bitcoin. You didn't know what it was. You probably didn't know what it was before you read the news and you heard about this bubble, this crash, all this other stuff going on. And I saw an article that was put out on the 16th of April by Discovery News. It says Bitcoin trading prompts tulip mania comparison. If you're not familiar with the tulip mania comparison, definitely look up this article, but I'll give it to you really briefly. Is that there was a long while ago, none of us who are listening to this were alive when this happened. And what happened is that for some reason, tulips became very popular. And because they became so popular, people began to place or invest more money or put more money and pay more money for them for no other reason than because it was tulips and it was seen in such a light that it seemed to be worth it. I definitely want you to check out that particular article, but let me explain to you the DIIP process and why it's important for you to understand it. First, we have D. D is for data. I is for information. The second I is for interpretation. The last letter P is for the process. We're taking a dip in the news because we want to take the data, turn it into information, and then take that information and interpret it as to what we should do, how to act on and profit from this particular piece of news. That's exactly what this whole section is about, is teaching you how to read a newspaper so that you can find opportunity to profit, period. So what does that mean? In this particular article, the major thing that I see or saw from the article, and I find it very, very interesting, is that if some of us are allergic to tulips, right? We don't like flowers. But that doesn't mean, just because I'm allergic to something doesn't mean I can't find a way to profit from it. So here's my point. Value is ultimately in the eye of the beholder. For a specific reason and their own reasons, the people who were willing to pay more money for a tulip or a Bitcoin or whatever found value in doing so. Okay? It's our job as the cash flow seekers, if you will, to find out why, what is driving their motivation to be willing to do so that we can understand when to buy and when to sell. Okay, but value is ultimately in the eye of the beholder. You may place no value on something and it doesn't matter. You may place a high value on something, and here's the bad news. It also, doesn't matter because it is ultimately your customer who must place a value on something in order for them to be willing to do what I call the value exchange, in that when you quote unquote sell something, what it really is you're negotiating an exchange. I will give you this of value in exchange for something else that I consider to be of value. And usually to facilitate that exchange, we use this concept called money that is denominated, for those of us in the US, in dollars. So that's what we're talking about there. And value is ultimately in the eye of the beholder. When I believe that what you are offering me is of more value than the money I hold, then I will give you the money in exchange for that. And for this particular case, whether it be a Bitcoin or tulip, that was exactly what is happening. The next thing that I find that's very interesting is value is perception, and perceived utility is indeed value. Part of the articles, and if you do some research on Bitcoin, is the fact that there's a perceived utility in the ability to send payments very, very quickly, efficiently, and for less cost. Now, there's a process called ephemeralization, which simply means being able to deliver more to more people at a lower cost. And that's pretty much what Bitcoin is able to do. It's able to get more money into more hands for more people faster and cheaper than we currently can right now. So it's the, upgraded process. It's the upgraded MoneyGram, the upgraded Western Union. It's the upgraded version that has, at this moment, very little government oversight, which is part of the concern and scare for some. And because it has I think, a utility, it's going to be here for a while. But value is perception, and perceived utility is value. It has a perceived use. It's like a piece of real estate. I don't care what you paid for it, but because there's a roof involved, it will always have value. The question is what is that value denominated in? And are you willing to accept that as value? Are you willing to accept 2 sheep instead of $400 a month for a rent payment? I mean, either way it goes, They're both valuable, and if you're willing to accept it, there's nothing preventing you from accepting such things. And so the question becomes, do you perceive and believe that what you're investing or providing as a product or service has utility value? What it is that you're doing right now today to earn an income, does it have any value? And if so, that is requisite. The amount of money you receive is requisite to what you say that it is worth. If you say, I'm not getting paid what I'm worth, well, here's the thing. You're choosing to show up voluntarily. No one's holding a gun to your head saying you must go to work. And more importantly, you are also agreeing with the amount that you're receiving because you're not doing anything about it. Or maybe you are. And that's why you're listening to this podcast, which is great. Hopefully that is the case. Here's the point. When you read this article, so now we've gone through some of the data. The article goes through some of the data points, when Tulip Media started, when the Bitcoin, all this other stuff was invented. What does that mean? Then we've went over to in the information, and that's what kind of I've been delivering to you, and that's what they begin to do inside of the article is give you some of the information. So the question becomes interpretation. So let me ask you this. If you had to interpret Bitcoin for the moment, what would you say is probably the thing to pay attention to? In my opinion, I would say utility value, because if it has a use, then it's not going to go anywhere. Just like tulips. Tulips may go up or down in price, and they went up crazily for a while. And all this, some people were hurt by that. That's true. Some people were probably enriched by that. That's also true. But yet, because tulips still have a function, a utility value, they're still here. So the question is a tulip worth investing in today as much as is a Bitcoin? And even if you don't know what it is, the whole point, you could insert Bitcoin with real estate or any other item, if you will. Is it worth investing in today? And the question that you must learn to ask yourself is, okay, does it have any utility value? If it has some utility value, the answer is probably yes, because at least it's going to be around for a while. And you can continue to do research that will help you, because once you say yes, it does have, or no, it doesn't, now you've made a decision and you can act with clarity as to why you will or why you won't purchase something. That is one of the first rules. You may have heard it said in the introduction that I teach the CashFlow board game. Yes, I've been doing that for a number of years, nearly a decade now. And I've had the privilege of being able to teach it with Robert and Kim Kiyosaki and the entire Rich Dad organization in the room. And it was fun. Here's the point. My point in sharing this with you is to say that one of the basic lessons from that game is to know why you buy or why you would buy or why you wouldn't buy something. And the DIIP process can become the foundation that you can use to be able to determine why you would or why you wouldn't buy something. So once you understand if something has utility value, then it probably fits within the cash flow stream of being able to, or cash flow idea, or an item that you can use to produce cash flow, I should say, so that you can go out there and literally create a stream of income. So let's talk about our top 3 questions your prospect needs answered. Top 3 questions the prospect needs answered. These are, and pretty much in this order, does it work? Will it work for me, and can I do it? Does it work? Will it work for me? Can I do it? What does that mean? Does it work? Well, does what you are offering your prospect, you're looking at them, you're like, hey, I want you to buy this house for me. If you're a wholesaler, you're like, or maybe you're retail and you're selling the house retail as a fix and flip, or maybe you've got a new widget and you're like, hey, this is the whiz bang widget. Okay, great. The prospect is going, does it work? What you say it can do, what you say it does, will it do it? And then you've got to prove it. Some of the ways to prove that it works are things like testimonials. That's probably one of the most used and most powerful ways that is proved that it's work. Another way is, the sample close, or oftentimes called the puppy dog close. It's like you go to the pet store and they say, yeah, sure, take the puppy home for, 2-3 days and just bring them back. How many of those puppies actually ever make it back? Like none, because you've got the puppy at home and he's so cute and he's got to stay, right? Well, that the point is that it begins to prove that it works to you, right? Does the actual, I mean, you hear like popular medicines may give you a trial size, or you get a trailer. Like this is another way to prove that it works. A movie trailer is actually evidence, right? In the sense that it gives you 2 to 3 minutes of a sample of the movie to go, well, maybe yes or maybe no. And depending on how that trailer performs, sometimes we're even still led astray, right? You see a movie that looks so good. You're like, oh, I can't wait to see it. And it's because they spent so much money on the trailer that they forgot to spend any on the movie. Anyway, the point is that when it comes down to it, it's our job, your job, to prove that it works. One of the great things about real estate, at least what I find that's great, is that this is the easiest thing to deal with. When you're out there looking to raise capital, you really have to prove that your idea is sound. You got to have proof of concept. And it's the easiest thing to do when you're doing real estate. Why? Because everyone understands that people need a place to live, work, play, or lay. Live, work, play, or lay. And what do I mean by that? You've heard it said that if you're going to have a business, you probably want a business with something that people need. That's not a luxury. It's an absolute must-have. I agree. Oh, well, you've heard about food, clothing, and what? That's right, shelter. I'm sure you answered that question in your head for yourself. So food, clothing, and shelter. And food is great, clothing is great, but the shelter is the thing that I definitely prefer. Now, let me shed a little light on this for a second. Yeah, hopefully you realize that there's a time in all of our existences where we'll no longer need food and we'll no longer need clothing, but we'll still need real estate. We'll no longer need food, we'll no longer need clothing, but we'll still have a need for real estate. Have you figured out when that is? Well, it's simple. There's going to come a point at which you die. And when you die, you won't need food, you won't need clothing, but you still will need real estate. And of course, unless you're cremated and all those other things, but you get my point. The point is does it work? Well, can your investors see that people need a place to live, work, play, or lay? Live, work, play, or lay. You live in a piece of shelter, whether that shelter is a single family house, a mobile home, an apartment building, it doesn't matter. People understand that people need a place to live. Whether that real estate is an office building, an industrial park, even a train yard, possibly an airport, right? People need a place to work. Maybe your real estate is, a movie theater. Maybe it's a theme park. Maybe it's just simply, I don't know, a fast food joint or a nightclub. But guess what? Those are still places to play. And you probably guessed that if you think about funeral homes, yes, that is a place to lay. And all I'm trying to say is, does it work? Yeah, it's easy to prove. So long as you have a way to prove that, that is the first question that your prospect wants answered. Whether that be someone who's trying to buy a property from you that they're going to own and control, whether you're trying to raise capital, they need to understand, does it work? And having that proof of concept is very, very easy. Okay, last week we had a question. Let's talk about the cash flow question. Last week's question was, what is the process called of questioning every part of your reasoning and examining all seemingly relevant data before you acquire an asset? Before you acquire an asset. The answer is, of course, due diligence. Due diligence. It's the process of literally saying, yes, I'll buy it unless I change my mind, because I'm going to now spend the next 30, 40, 60, 90 days looking at all the reasons why I shouldn't. And if I can't convince myself that I'm not going to buy it, then okay, I'll buy it. That's really how that process plays itself out. So now you're a little bit smarter. That's great. We've increasing your financial IQ. This week's question, what is the following term? I'm going to give you the definition. You're going to tell me what this term is called. What is trade in high volumes at prices that are considerably at variance with intrinsic values called? What is trade in high volumes at prices that are considerably at variance with intrinsic values called? Now, if you have to look up variance in intrinsic values, great, do so, because that will also increase your financial intelligence. Outside of that, what is the term called? It's a 2-word term that I'm looking for. And if you really, really, really want to get a clue, feel free to rewind back to our Dip in the News section, and you'll have a clue within that section as to the answer to that question. Okay, let's get back to our main topic. The next question of, will it work for me? Will it work for me? See, here's the thing. It's easy oftentimes for us to visualize someone else's success as more than it is our own. It's easy to say, oh, sure, they can do it, but if I tried it, it won't work. This is the same thing as saying things like, you know what? Yeah. If I had the keys to your car, it wouldn't start for me. As if the car has some sort of, emotions or some sort of attitude towards us to where it says, no, you didn't turn the key right, so I'm not going to start. It doesn't care. Here's the point. To answer the will it work for me question, present a system. A system is the answer to that. Systems work regardless of time, regardless of place, regardless of race, color, creed, size, anything. What you've done, where you've been, who you are, none of that matters. It's a system. Will it work for you? The answer is yes, if you are willing to understand how to make a system work. And one of the things about that, and the things that I love about business and real estate, is the fact that you don't have to go it alone. You may start alone, that's okay. But you're never really by yourself, because you got all these other entrepreneurs who are out there doing the same thing. And you can hire and have a team of people who have more knowledge, more time, more experience, more everything than you. And you have the ability to go out there and leverage that for everyone's benefit. Will it work for you? Absolutely. You just got to do the same or similar to everyone else. And sometimes just as much as 10% better than the best will put you in a completely new stratosphere of being able to achieve some phenomenal results. Will it work for you? Absolutely. And we must develop strategies to eliminate our own self-imposed weaknesses, our own self-imposed negative thinking, our own self-imposed, we'll call it negative self-talk, the things that say to us, that we just grew up believing for whatever reason, and for some reason, those things tend to get in our way. The next one is, can I do it? Can I do it? See, it is possible to believe that it would work, but then we have to deal with this last little piece, and it happens to be ourselves. We have to deal with our character. We know us. We know us. When we say things like, oh, yeah, it could work, yet, if you're doing buy and hold real estate, that could be a 10-year thing, before you get to the level that you're looking for. 20 or 30, you're like, oh my God, I've never focused on anything for more than 45 consecutive seconds. How on earth am I going to stay focused on this, for 5 years, 10 years, 15 years to actually see this happen? Can I do that? I see that the system works. I see that it does work, but man, do I have the character, the integrity, the ability to make something like that happen? And we must begin that work on ourselves. I mean, I remember, Jim Rohn would often say things like that, we got to work harder on ourselves than we do at our job. We got to work harder on ourselves than we do at our job, because there's so many skill sets that we've lost touch with since the invention, dare I say, of the corporation, that we no longer know that we have the ability to do, and we have to go out there and relearn them and understand that we can bridge these gaps. This often comes up when we realize or get introduced to the fact that in order to be successful in business, we might have to learn how to sell something. And we go, oh my God, I don't know how to sell. I've never sold anything. And then as soon as you mention the word sales, like right now, some of you, when I said the word sell, you probably thought of a, sleazy car salesman in a plaid jacket, right? And now you've got an issue. You're like, I don't want to be associated with them. Even worse, mom said, hey, don't talk to strangers. But guess what sales requires you to do? You have to go find people you don't know, strangers, talk to them, and ask them to buy something. car salesman. So now we're saying we're going to be sleazy people with plaid jackets talking to people we don't know. And I was told all my life not to do this. And now that's what's required for my success. See, we've got to work harder on ourselves to eliminate these things, strategies, and develop strategies to increase our belief. This is where books or audiobooks or events come in, because it helps us to get around people who are like-minded, or even bulletin boards and communities. Like on the website, CashFlowDiary.com, you've got a whole bunch of people right there who are going through the same process as you and I, and we're all sharing our stories, being able to encourage and support one another through this process so that we have a shot at being able to achieve something a little bit more, a little extraordinary, if you will, than what the common person wants to have. Can you do it? Yes. 3 questions are: does it work? Will it work for me? And can I do it? Yes, is my answer. And here's my final comment. It doesn't work for you. You work for it. Until next time.
Thank you for investing your time with Jay Massey and the Cash Flow Diary. When you have a moment, please visit iTunes and leave a positive comment about the show. And go now to our website, CashFlowDiary.com, to take advantage of our free business building course, Cash Flow Foundation. Gain the knowledge, understanding, and skill that will teach you how to never need a job again. Until next time.